Uh, it has been a wonderful few days recently, because one film has really been the talk of the town, and that is, of course, 3-2, which is a film I've seen a few times, and it is such a laugh riot, and it completely elevates from his first film. And joining us today, I believe this is his first UK interview as well. Um,
Yeah.
of course, the writer of Stree 2, and of course, the other Maddock Supernatural series, Bhediya and Munjya. Writer Niren Bhatt joins us today. So, Niren, thank you so much for joining us on filmishilmy.com,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. I mean, look, I think I'm going to begin with the most obvious question, but I think it'll be nice to just get your response on it. Uh,
Hmm.
Three to success. I think this is honestly, I mean, I'm sure you would even agree that this is probably the biggest you've ever had, right?
Yeah.
Uh, how satisfying is it when people appreciate your writing and people appreciate the words you've penned down?
Hmm. Yeah, it's really satisfying coming at this juncture because see, I've had such successes before that writing was being talked about from my first film actually. I mean, when I wrote Bayar and it released, okay, so it created this kind of a euphoria and cult following where everyone was like talking about it. They were quoting dialogues and it became kind of a legendary thing. It also happened with me in Bala, in various films. It happened, but post-pandemic, things have changed. The equations have changed. There are like there is an onslaught of action films, and the whole industry was in a flux. Everyone was asking each other that what will work, what will not work. Are we going in the right direction? In which direction the society is going? Because as creators, most of us were questioning ourselves that where is this going? Where is this whole society, the mentality, the psyche is going? Because most of us anticipated that after COVID people have introspected and the lust for life, as we say, of running after things and going after mindless thing will stop, and somewhere entertainment will also stop. And but what came out was something really, something that nobody quite anticipated, the kind of film that worked, and the kind of changes we saw in the society. So yeah, I mean, everyone was in a flux, everyone was questioning themselves. Okay, are we heading in the right direction? Are we doing the right thing? Or shall we also join the bandwagon and create like those spectacle, action films where heroes are walking in slow motion, beating up bad guys? I mean, obviously there is a merit to doing that also, and you can also do it in a very creative way also. But we were questioning ourselves, but we stuck to our guns. We did what we do the best. Created this like collage of horror, comedy, social messaging, and madness. I mean, a lot of madness. So yeah, I'm very happy that that worked. A film that talks about smashing the patriarchy, literally, that worked, and people have appreciated. People are, having a ball in the theaters across the world. I mean, I'm getting messages since last 4 days. So yeah, really happy because of that.
I mean, I think it's wonderful, and I think what Stree 2 does, and I've said this quite a few times as well, is that India, the soft power of India is its cinema, undoubtedly. We have so many stories from our folklore to the traditional stories rooted in Hindu culture and Indian culture. And I think what C2 really does, it capitalizes on that very beautifully. It really brings out our cultural roots. I mean, I think you did the similar thing for Asur as well when you wrote that. Uh, so I want to talk a bit about the folklore, even Munja for that same matter as well. How important was it for you when presenting these stories for
Hmm.
you to also do justice to
Hmm.
the sort of cultural roots where we belong?
See, I mean, our culture is very deep rooted in those scriptures and what comes out of it. So as we see, there is a saying that if there is something which is not there in Mahabharata, it doesn't exist at all. Okay, so it's so vast, and all of our scriptures, I mean important scriptures, if you look at them, okay, apart from some of them which are like absolutely spiritual texts, all of them are stories. Ramayana is a story, Mahabharata is a story, and Upanishads have a lot of stories, and there are a lot of other stories also based in our culture, and that's how folklores also somehow get integrated with them. That there are different folk legends we have in different parts of India. So say we utilize the legend of Yapum in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, a shapeshifter which becomes a wolf or any animal according to that legend. And then the Munjya is another legend of Konkan, where a young boy, okay, when he is going through the thread ceremony, जो जनेऊ की रस्म बोलते हैं जिसे, तो that's yajnopavit sanskar. So after yajnopavit sanskar, if he dies within 10 days, he becomes a Brahma Rakshas. Okay, so he becomes a Munja. So it's a very integral part of that culture. And even the dance that you see, that's a dance of Shankasur and in Munja. So, I mean, Aditya took me to all those places. Aditya Sarpotdar is the director of the film. We actually met people who do that folk dance around Holi every year. Okay, and they told us stories, that what are the stories they are telling. So yeah, I mean, all our films have somewhere some connection with some folk legend or some scriptures. Like when I wrote Bala, okay, there was a very strong theme of Kubja. Okay, so in there is a story in our scriptures of Kubja, and she's a hunchback. Okay, and Krishna touches her, and she becomes a beautiful woman.
Hmm.
Okay, so at one point, even Bhumi's character questions the god. Okay, that भगवान ने ही गलत किया ना, कृष्ण भगवान ने उसको सुंदर बनाने की क्या जरूरत थी, वो जैसी थी वैसी भी तो किसी को पसंद आ सकती थी.
Hmm.
Okay, and eventually at the end of the film, Ayushmann Khurrana says that now I have understood really what Kubja story was. कि भगवान कृष्ण ने उसको छू के उसको सुंदर बनाया नहीं था, पर उसे अपनी खूबसूरती का एहसास दिलाया था. So
जी.
once you understand how beautiful you are, okay, then you are the most beautiful person in the world. So yeah, I mean, all these films have very strong connection to folklores and scriptures and stories from our I mean, scriptures of all other folk legends, urban legends. And we borrow very heavily from that, and then we sort of fictionalize it and make it into a film story.
Right. So what also really amazes me about the craft is the way we, I mean, जब आप लिखते हो और फिर जब हम देखते हैं वो चीज, it feels, I mean, it's unreal, it's surreal. It's like, for example, if we read the Harry Potter books and you see it on screen, there is a massive
Yeah.
difference to how you would imagine things. So I think for you, when you're writing s- you know films as elaborate as Munja, as Bhediya, as Stree 2, which are so heavy also in CGI and supernaturalism as well, how does it feel about the way it's translated on screen? Has there
Yeah.
ever felt a bit of a, if I can say, a dichotomy for you as a writer, where आपने एक चीज इमेजिन किया और स्क्रीन में कुछ अलग दिखा? ऐसा कुछ हुआ है आपकी जिंदगी में ऐसा?
No, see the VFX part of it. No, it's you need to understand the process of VFX. Okay, as a writer also, because when we did Bhediya specifically, we worked with those guys and we understood, okay, what we can do in our stories and how far we can push the visual envelope. Okay, so once you have that understanding, you know what you can do with your character. If it's a CGI character like Munjya, okay, so you can see stuff like him merging into the tree, and tree becoming the Munjya and attacking the boy, and all those things. You understand that there are these things that you can create. Okay, and you also understand the boundaries. Okay, okay, after that, if I push it further, it will start looking cartoonish. Okay, so if I become too ambitious and create like really grand visuals of unheard of things, then it will become like cartoonish. So you need to sit with them and understand. So I've been fortunate enough because I've been a part of this process for last 3 4 years for 3 films now. So by Bhediya, Munjya, and Stree 2, and we sit with the illustrator also, who makes the whole all the scenes that we have in our mind is put on paper in terms of images, and then it goes to the VFX people, and what they send, and we also brainstorm on that. Is it right? Can it be more scarier, or thematically can we do something else with this? And all those things, I mean, you go through the process and you learn. So it is a learning for all of us, because in Indian cinema, I mean, we haven't explored VFX because of the limitations of budget. The kind of films that we are making are not like very heavy budget films. Okay, so we are also learning, and we are also learning how to incorporate those aspect into our scripts. Okay, and once we get the hang of it, the most beautiful part of it is that what is screenwriting. Screenwriting is not just dialogues. No, screenwriting by definition is that a writer is sitting and creating visuals. Okay, he is telling the story through pictures. Okay, he's describing what is happening on screen. Okay, two people are sitting, there is a bottle of rum there. It is more than half empty, so they are drunk. You can see their glasses, you can see the shadow, you can see the time of the day. So everything you're supposed to describe visually. Okay, so this is a visual storytelling medium, and once you know the VFX aspect of it, you know how much visually you can push the envelope. So in Stree 2, I'll give you an example that we wanted to create this metaphor that if you want to smash the patriarchy, it's not about men versus women. Okay, it's men and women have to come together
Yeah.
to defeat that demon. And once, how would they come together? Okay, so that coming together thing is called Ardhanareshwar, where Nareshwar is Shiv ka swarup, where Shiv और Shakti का संगम जिसे बोलते हैं.
जी
Okay,
जी.
and the visual representation of them, that is them coming together, them getting merged into each other. So that's where we used VFX to convey a metaphor of our theme. Okay, we are not elaborating it that this is done because of this in dialogues. It's just a visual metaphor that we are creating, but we could create it because we had the knowledge of VFX.
Sure. I actually got very emotional watching that because it kind of, and I think also with what's happening right now in Bengal, and the sort of movements that are happening of women fighting back and well, not just women, I think everyone taking a stance against such oppression and
Mm.
such atrocities against women. I think it just started feeling a lot more real as
Yeah.
well. So again, for
Mm.
you, I would love to know how you envisioned this, especially when it comes to Sri, because I think what we looked at Sri before in the first one was like a menace. She was a very sinister presence. Here, you actually empathize with her. You feel for her. I mean, especially when she looks at Shraddha like this and she twists her head. So, if you could talk to me a bit about whether there's been any inspiration in your life of any strong women or any time when you've stood up to some sort of patriarchy, and how, if that has really come handy for you in as a
Oh, I
reference.
mean, in my life, my biggest inspiration has always been my mother. My mother is a professor of psychology and sociology. She is a double BA, double MA, and a college professor. She first, when I was very young, she took me to libraries. She used to take me to youth festivals where I was introduced to theater. And then I got fascinated, and I started doing theater. I started reading books. My grandmother was also a professor. She was a professor of Sanskrit and sociology. Okay, so I inherited a lot of language and storytelling knowledge from her also. So I've been brought up by very strong women, and they were like quite revolutionary in their own way, in whatever they did in their life. So I mean, that influence is definitely on me, and that Amar also comes from a similar background. So both of us have a very strong background in that way of having strong females around us. So it will definitely somewhere it reflects in our story. And even though, I mean, the biggest challenge that we were facing in say a film like Bala, okay, where this girl leaves the boy who doesn't have hair. Okay, so obviously the Yami's character would look devilish, right? Like वो typical सास बहू सीरियल की जो विलन होती है, okay, उस टाइप का लगने लगेगी. And we had that fear that we don't want her to portray her in a bad light, because she's also a human being. Okay, so we dwell into her philosophy. And then, we gave her a monologue where she also says that, ever since I was a child, I was growing up in a school, and मेरे जो भी मुझे अटेंशन मिला, आई वॉज द वर्स्ट स्टूडेंट इन माई क्लास. तो 50 का क्लास था, उसमें भी मेरा नंबर 51st आता था. ठीक है, तो आई वॉज द वर्स्ट स्टूडेंट. सो ओनली अटेंशन आई कुड गेट वॉज ड्यू टू माई लुक्स. ओके, और आज भी मैं जो भी हूँ, जैसी भी बनी हूँ, एक पोस्ट करती हूँ, उसके नीचे 500 कमेंट आते, वो उसमें से भी 480 होते लुकिंग गुड. Okay, so if my entire existence is about looking good, where am I wrong if I expect my life partner to look good? Okay, so once you dwell deep into the psyche of your characters, then you find a way to justify them, no matter how skewed they are in narrative's eyes. So yeah, I mean, yeah, as long as the background of strong females it's there in both of us.
And I think also the biggest challenge, I think, one probably you must have faced as well is, I think in the first three, the influence of Rajan DK's quirky sort of writing and uh, storytelling. Did you feel like there was a, let me say, a sense of pressure, because obviously they left such a huge benchmark, and it was such a beautiful marriage of, obviously, because I know that was Amar's first film, but it was such a beautiful combination of the supernatural, sort of horror with their genre
Yeah.
of comedy as well. So did you ever find it a bit of a challenge to rise up to that as well for the sequel?
Uh, See, I mean, first thing we decided that we need to get rid of the baggage, whatever baggage the film is carrying. Okay, the baggage of people who wrote the story, the baggage of the appreciation that the film got. Because even when we do say we do Stree 3 now, okay, we'll have to get rid of the baggage of Stree 2. Okay, so unless you get rid of that baggage and come to the drawing board and start from zero, okay, you won't be able to do a good job, because it's a hustle. Okay, you it seems very entertaining and all, but each line is written like 10 times, and out of them one has survived, which is there in the film. Okay, so it went through like 2 3 years of rigorous writing, 15 to 17 drafts. So I mean, it's a hustle each time anyone does it. And of course, they did a beautiful job along with my dear friend Sumit Arora, who wrote dialogues. Okay,
Dialogues.
that was also a very key part of the part one, and they created that flavor. But biggest help for me was that the key part of the whole process was Amar. Okay, and Amar knew where each character was going and how it was conceived, and where he is supposed to go. So I mean, him being around me was a great help. And then there were no roadblocks. I mean, we did our thing as best as we could.
Right. No, best as you could. I think you definitely I think you hit it out of the park, to be very honest, Niren, sir. And I think also I must also appreciate this duo that we are seeing with Amar Kaushik and Niren Bhatt. I think it's kind of going down in history of contemporary Hindi cinema as arguably the best director writer duo we've seen in a long time. And it's so
Very grateful that you are saying that, because see, the duos that I appreciate are say Abhijat and Rajkummar Irani, or Himanshu Sharma and Anand L. Rai. So though I mean, we're very happy that people are saying this, and uh, I mean, I don't know how to react to it.
No, but I think it also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it almost seems like there's a sense of comfort now. Like
Yeah,
the mutual understanding, because you've worked with Amar before, in Bhediya and in Bala. So
yeah,
it almost seems like he knows that, you're good at your craft as a writer. So he kind of in a way leaves you to it. And
yeah.
you definitely know where he works as a director. So एक mutual understanding है आप दोनों के बीच में ऐसा
Yeah, yeah. See, I mean, it's all these things that we are doing. There are some really, really crazy things that we are doing. Okay, insane Bhediya. These two guys are in the car, and suddenly they hit the radio and it plays Tera Surur. Okay, and the wolf replies to Tera Surur by howling. Okay, so when you create stuff as crazy as that, okay, you need people who vibe with that, madness that you have. Okay, so I mean, fortunately, Amar is that person. We have the same kind of a mad sense of humor, and we are also like liberated by Dinesh Vijan a lot, because he believes in us. I always say that he believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. Okay, he liberates us, that no, you guys do your thing, and then when we narrate him the story or give him the script, he points out if there are any faults, and otherwise he backs us like so much that I mean, that somewhere liberates us to do this kind of crazy things.
And I'm glad you mentioned the humor. I mean, honestly, I cannot even begin. I don't even know where to begin with the humor. I think from the onset, it was literally a laugh riot. I think for me, my favorite scene, my favorite scene is, and my favorite character actually is Jana. Absolutely love Abhishek Banerjee in this film, and I really think he elevates completely from the first one. Um, Even in Bhedia, he was amazing too. But there's this one scene where they come into a mental hospital, and and as soon as they enter the mental hospital, the patient starts tapping his head, and Jana starts screaming, and behind him starts tapping his head. I mean,
No,
I
no,
think
Abhishek is simply amazing. Abhishek is unbelievable. I mean, I always say that no, he deserves like 10 to 20% of my fees, because he does it so well, and he also adds his own stuff, and it's a joy to watch him. He's a very good, and see, this weekend actually belongs to him, because he has two releases. In
yeah.
one film, he's playing an upper caste suppressor, okay, who is an out and out villain, a bad guy, and in other film he's playing an absolute buffoon. Okay, so I mean, if someone can pull it off this well, you have to, like, appreciate it.
No, definitely. But again, it's these moments like these, I mean, there's so many jokes में मतलब कहाँ कहाँ पर quote करूं, like भर भर के मतलब quotes है. And I think this is the toughest thing, because sometimes, when you're writing, it must be really hard for you to actually gauge, right? Whether ये punch land करेगी या नहीं, लोगों को funny लगेगी या
That's why I'm telling you. So humor writing is that exercise that you constantly question yourself, whether is it funny or is not funny. Does it go with the character? Is just a gag, or it's just a one-liner, or does it go also with your character? And is it landing? Okay, so that's why you need to write like 10 lines for each line, and then finally zero down on one thing. Okay, so that's why it's the most difficult and rigorous kind of an exercise. It looks very funny when you look at it, but I mean, the creation part is like it's damn hard.
Yeah, and I think also again, props goes to you and the entire team really, because I feel like we're in this. phase of cinema where multiverses have literally taken over in terms of the stories, whether it's the superhero films, whether it's the spy universe here, the cop universe. Uh, but I do think what's really special about the Supernatural one by Maddock is the writing does not just it's not just made to collect money. Like it's not just made, अच्छा बड़ी बड़ी फिल्में बनानी है, 100 करोड़ बनाने हैं, चलो यूनिवर्स बना देते हैं, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. There's a
Yeah.
really good due diligence that you've given. I mean, even in Stree too, it really fuses Bhediya. There's lots of Munjya references as well. Um, and there's also, I think, a reference as well to Vampires of Vijay Nagar as well, which is the upcoming sort of film in the Supernatural franchise. So again, for you as a writer to really be aware of these things and to not just write a film just for the sake of अच्छा universe बना देते हैं तो लोगों को जब people can just clap at the special appearances and star driven. How important was it for you actually from the onset to make sure that it weaves
See,
well?
I mean, I'm a very big fan of comic books and graphic novels. Okay, actually, I developed that habit of regularly reading them some years back because when I realized that it's a visual storytelling medium, so your mind needs to think visually rather than just words. Okay, I was always a man of literature. I read a lot in all languages: Hindi, English, Gujarati, and I had good command over languages. So, but when I turned screenwriter, I was consciously trying to better my craft, and that's how I got into graphic novels and comic books. So, see the universe part, no, what they have built upon Marvel or DC, okay, is a 70-year-old tradition of comic books and heroes and their stories and their interconnections of those stories. Okay, now we are in the first phase of it. Probably when Stanley was starting out or Alan Moore was starting out, around that time, what they would have thought when they were creating these characters. Okay, and then those characters became popular, the stories became popular, then they sort of started merging them. Okay, so we are in the nascent stage of creating that. Okay, and we are directly creating it for the cinema. Okay, so we need to be doubly careful how we create them, okay, and how we connect them. So we don't, plan too much in advance, but when we are planning one character, we try to do full justice to it. Okay, and we have plans for that particular character with other characters that we have created. Say, if we are creating Munja, we have plans of Munja with Bhediya or Munja with Stree Ka universe, and how those stories will like will be interconnected. So we have an idea about those things. Okay, and we have some stories in our minds, but we don't want to think too far ahead of ourselves because our first job or responsibility is to make that particular uh, franchise or say a film successful. So if the Munja doesn't work, okay, then it would be very difficult for us to integrate it in the universe. Okay, because see, it's a film with newcomers. Okay, Sharwari's second film. It's that guy's first film, and we have a CG character. Aditya Sarpotdar is making his first Hindi film. He comes from Marathi cinema. So, I mean, there are a lot of newcomers involved in the film, and our plans are so big. So we need to take one step at a time. And once that is like that fulfills the purpose, then we can think ahead of it and think about merging them and integrating them into other stories. So yeah, this is how it's going. And but of course, we when we think of it, we have the stories in mind that what we will do in future 4, 5, 6 films ahead.
Sure. Now,
Oh.
I think also I want to jog your brains a little bit, really. But why do you think these sort of multiverse stories are working, and why is especially Indian cinema so heavily wanting to make these films? Because I don't understand exactly. I think it might have just come from the Avengers. I feel like the success of that, and then suddenly
The
we.
recent example is Avengers, okay. But if you see in a broader sense, like I said, all our scriptures also have it. Okay, so
True.
there's an individual story of say Bhim, of Arjun, of Nakul, of Sahadev, of Karna. Also, there is a different story. Okay, of Krishna, there is a different whole scripture called Krishna Avatar. But then Krishna is also a part of Mahabharata, key part of Mahabharata. So if you see, all our scriptures are like that. Okay, and probably they have borrowed their stories from the scriptures of the world. So I mean, if you read The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, okay, that also talks about heroes like Achilles and Arjuna and Hercules and all those great heroes. And when we look at them, okay, eventually their stories are also a part of a bigger narrative, but they also have their individual stories. So I think it comes from scriptures, but of course, I mean, of late, it has been made popular by Marvel and DC.
Sure. And I think one thing that I've noticed a lot in your works is particularly, I mean, you co-wrote one of my favorite Gujarati films of all time, which is Wrong
Yeah,
Side Raju.
yeah.
And I think also if we look at a lot of the other works, like even if it is a film like Bala, which is a social comedy, there's a certain darkness that you've always included in your stories. And I think the treatment of the darkness is, it can be very easily melodramatic. You can easily sur jab hota hai, that you can easily go upar and lose track of that. But I think the way you've written it are so focused. Again, firstly, what keeps you so focused, and what really sort of lures you into the dark side when it comes to such stories as well?
No, no, Asurto is called welcome, I mean, the dark side.
Yeah.
So it is all about the dark side of a person. Uh, See, I mean, as a storyteller, no, like I was telling you, you dwell in deep into the psyche of people, and most fascinating psyches are of criminals. Okay, if you see Mind Hunters, most of the shows which are popular about serial killers are popular because of that. Because people, when they see them, say Dahmer, okay, I mean, they get fascinated by how crooked and how dark a human being's mind can be. Okay, that, I mean, somewhere rattles you inside, makes you uneasy, but also keeps you engaged. Okay, so that has, the darkness has that quality. And as a creator, always when you are writing a story, as a storyteller, it fascinates you. Okay, and you are like, you veer towards that. You try to dig deep into it. That why is that person like that? If he thinks he is Asur, why he thinks he is Asur? Okay, because of the child abuse he suffered in his childhood. His father told him that, you are an Asur, but he was simply he had a medical condition that he could read the books in one go, and he had a very sharp memory. But his father kept on telling me कि राक्षस पैदा हुआ है घर में. And that's when he decides that if I am a rakshas, what am I? He goes to the scriptures, he finds out I am Kali. Okay, and this era belongs to me. Okay, and this is Kali Yuga, and I am the king of this era, and my job is to kill Kalki, who will be born. So, I mean, this is how you reach to those things. Okay, you dwell deep into the psyche of this thing. So, this is simply the story of a child who went through a very troubled childhood, child abuse. Okay, so uski story hai, but that somehow somewhere reflects on the darkness that he went into, and that he created later on.
Absolutely, very beautifully said. But one thing that I have to say as well, Nitin Bhai, that we're kind of one thing that I love about India and Indian cinema is that हमारी जो दिव्यता है, हमारी जो spirituality है ना, that has not been compromised for any narrative. Uh, I mean, in Hollywood, sometimes it really bothers me when I see very antichrist films, that are very sort of empowering the devil and the Satan a lot more. For example, there was this one film that the energy was so strong that I had to leave out. For example, Long Legs with
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage. I mean, it was absolutely. I've seen many horror films, but that one really was. It was just.
It's quite disturbing. I saw it recently.
It was
So
just
when people tell me no that no horror थोड़ा कम लगा, ये comedy थोड़ी ज्यादा थी, आप horror comedy, so I just tell them you don't know what actual horror is, and
exactly.
these are supposed to be family films. We are not going there. Okay, we are not going into long legs kind of a territory. So I mean, it's a different kind of a film. So we are not going there. Yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly. Thank you for saying that because honestly, I feel like, and I don't even want Indian cinema to go to that level either because I feel like I said, हमारी सबसे बड़ी soft power जो ये है, वो हमारी culture है, और हमारे and because it's so rooted and so beautifully like how you've always referenced them in your films, I think you genuinely really understood the assignment when it comes to that. But I want to talk a bit about Gujarati cinema because I think that there is so much talent that is there, and you've had your fair share of experiences writing in Gujarati as well. A lot of lyrics you've written there. Um, I feel like what's happened from what I've understood about Gujarati cinema is that the comedies have always done very well. You'll obviously get the odd film like Hilaro, for example, which would win a National Film Award, and it would also perform commercially well. But then you also have your other unique kind of films like Rado, like Vash, which are different, that are distinct from the usual comedies that unfortunately do not perform commercially well. Why do you think there is that sense of, if there is a sense of dysfunctionality, and how can we kind of really improve the sort of movement of Gujarati cinema? Because I really feel there's so much talent there, and I feel like it's not people aren't allowing it for it to reach its full potential, so to speak.
I mean, the problem is deep rooted. So first aspect of it is infrastructure, because in say Hindi film industry there is a proper infrastructure. There are studios who have an umbrella of films. Okay, so where somewhere they have comedy films, somewhere they have action films, somewhere they have small indie films also, somewhere they have horror films also, and all kinds of cinema. No, they make under one umbrella. Okay, but in Gujarat, say in regional industries, specifically, the producers are independent producers. So a maker goes to them with a story. Say, first thing the producer will think about is that will it make me money? Okay, and he'll think about what is the last film that made money. And if that's comedy, he'll say, okay, no, no, we'll have to make comedy only. That's a safer, investment. So, but yeah, I mean, this happens with all regional industries. Okay, and somewhere when back to back 2 3 good films come which are out of the mold and of a different mold, like Hilaro or Vash or say Wrong Side Raju. So there are thrillers, there are other kind of stories, folk tales. Reva is a great example. They made on a very great novel by Dhruv Bhatt. So yeah, I mean, if those kind of films, 3 4 films come back to back, then it becomes easier, because they producers also will get confidence and they'll start also empowering new filmmakers, and new kind of cinemas will start coming. But it's a long process. Okay, it's a the gestation period of that kind of a process is long. So if you look at other say industries, say Marathi. Okay, so that kind of a new wave Marathi cinema movement started from a film like Shwas. Okay, which went for it's a very small indie film. Okay, it went for Oscars, and that's how other filmmakers got motivated. And there were films like Tingya and Vadu and Nut Samrat, and slowly they came to films like Sairat, and their budget started increasing, and they sort of made more interesting and varied subjects they weaved in their films. Same with Malayalam cinema, if you see. I mean, overall, if you see, this is a process, and it will take some time, and it will take 3 4 good films to come back to back, which are breaking the mold. But it will happen. It will eventually happen.
Sure. I really hope it does happen because I think there's so much potential. Like, when I see Vush, for example, I mean, it's completely different to what Shaitan was.
Yeah,
But yet,
actually, KD is a very versatile filmmaker. And if you see his work, the kind of films that he has made is really path-breaking.
Yeah.
So I'll give you example of Karsanda's Pay and Use. To make a film where your hero runs a toilet, public toilet, okay, is a great it takes guts to make films like that. But yeah, he has proved time and again that he's a great maker and he's a risk taker.
Mm,
He knows how to entertain people, and he also knows how to make innovative films. And there are a lot of other makers like that. There's Anish, there is Abhishek, there is Nikhil, there is Rahul Bole and Vinit. So yeah, Abhishek Shah, they also adapted a novel recently called Kamthan.
mm.
So there is this guy who directed that film, Drunad. So there are a lot of guys like that, and they are trying to make good films. I just hope that they come in a stretch for people to realize that now this kind of a cinema is a rage in audiences also. So let's finance them.
Absolutely. Well, no, I agree with you. And I think that's why we as creators can only do our bit to support and help, right? And to really encourage cinema. But I think it's great. We've been talking a lot about the successes that you've had in your journey, but I think writer's block is quite a big issue as well, I think, amongst any creative, to sort of come to a phase where आपके creative juices itne hain, but you can't really bring it to surface when you're sitting down with your thoughts and with your paper, pen and paper. How have you dealt with writer's block in your life? And what helped you to really overcome it?
See, there are two things. Okay, one is a writer block, which is actually a medical condition. Okay, which is actually a mental health condition, and for that you actually need to consult a therapist, and maybe if he suggests, then you need to go on some medication. So it has happened with some of my friends also. So I know that, and there is another aspect to it, which is quite common. Okay, which is like more than 80% of writers blocks that I've heard about and I've come across in my career with myself and my friends who are other fellow writers. So what happens is that, see, biggest thing that is stopping you to do your work is procrastination.
Mm,
Okay, it's you yourself uh, against you yourself, right? You as a creative person who wants to write that script, you as a lazy person who wants to surf, who wants to watch films, who wants to binge watch shows, thinking that it is research or I'll get some motivation out of it. Actually, what you are doing is you are just killing time. Okay, you are just trying to delay the eventual thing that you are supposed to do as much as possible. Okay, and that's quite a human trait to have. Most of the writers I know are the biggest procrastinators. They'll delay it as much as they can, and finally when the deadline comes, they'll have to sit like 2 nights at a stretch to finish the script. So yeah, I mean, most of it is like that, and for that the remedy is that you need to cultivate the discipline. So my long years in television has helped me to cultivate the discipline to write long hours, to have a schedule, and write religiously every day. You sit like a monk and you pray. Okay, so in your this thing, prayer is your writing. Okay, so that's how it rolls. I mean, in writing, the biggest enemy a writer faces is the procrastination.
Imagine procrastination is tough. It really is tough. I think in any field, right? Because you kind of it's like you're kind of fighting this
So
sort
there's a beautiful book by Stephen Pressfield called War on Art. Okay, so it actually describes this whole phenomenon in a very great detail with examples and how to overcome it. I would prescribe it to all the writers. Okay, if they want to. I mean, two books: Julia Cameron's Writer's Way and War on Art. It's a must for all writers.
Hmm. Now, I think horror comedy is definitely a genre which Hindi cinema at least has not kind of which was basically in a need to be explored in great detail, and that was obviously until Stree came along. Uh
Hmm.
Obviously Hollywood has had like Ghostbusters and films like that which have done really well. Uh how do you feel? now after the success of Stree, because I think in South, I'm sure they must have had horror comedies beforehand, I'm sure. So I can't really comment on that or any other regional cinema because I've not seen all of
No,
them.
no, they have had some very good, I mean,
Yeah,
hits. I mean, they were made into Hindi also. The biggest example is Chandramukhi, which was made
yeah,
into Bhool Bhulaiya, then Kanchana, which was
yeah.
made into Lakshmi Bomb. So even in South, also there is a big culture of horror comedies.
Right. But then I think, see, that's the thing. Because I feel like, for example, with Bhool Bhulaiya or Mani Chittararu, the original Malayalam film, or Chandramukhi, it seems to veer more on the psychological thriller comedy rather than the supernatural horror comedy, right? I think वो थोड़ा सा missing था, I think हमारे Hindi cinema में, which is great that we're seeing that now. And like you mentioned as well about clarifying about horror and all of that. How do you feel now with the growth that the genre has had following Sree's success as well? The first three, I mean.
Mhm. See, I don't, want to put the stories into those brackets that this has to be this only, this has to be this only. I mean, our next can be horror comedy love story. Okay, so which will like merge three genres together. Okay, Bhediya was say more of supernatural action adventure than the horror because we are talking about nature and we didn't want the wolf to be the ghost kind of an animal. Okay, the wolf was a wolf and he was seen as a wolf and he represented nature. Okay, so I'm not a great believer in tagging the films with the genre's name, but yeah, I mean, this is something that we sort of thought about a lot. I mean, when the Munjya was being conceived, there were very long discussions that how would he look and what kind of looks, what kind of VFX would go into it, whether he can be a VFX or a prosthetic wala ghost, or how do we create Bhediya, how do we create Sarkata. So all those are we had those long discussions and after at the end of the discussion we finally came to the conclusion of making them as they are. Okay, so yeah, I mean, somewhere we also like are exploring and discovering this thing. Okay, for me, I mean, personally, when I see work of say Jordan Peele, okay, Nope and Get Out and films like that, okay, I also get inspired that what all you can do with a genre like this. Say he's merging very severe sort of racial commentary with horror. Okay, and I mean that's something really amazing. And how can we do something which is like as amazing as that in our own genre that we are working in? So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge and it's a process of exploration that we are going through.
And to be honest, not to give that whole multiverse reference again, but it almost feels like Akshay Kumar is set to be the Thanos of the supernatural comedy, sort of horror comedy franchise by Maddock. And I'm absolutely loving that. I think he was amazing in Stree 2 with whatever we
Yeah,
see.
yeah, we have great plans, but I'll not be able to reveal those details because they have to come as surprises in future.
I think Niren Bhai will have to write Oh Anuj Kalana, I think for that. No, but I think look, I've got to ask you though. I think we're so after 3-2, I think a lot of us are feeling so pumped for not just the next three film, but I think for even for the was it Vampires of Vijay Nagar as well. And I think that is something which has been a talk of the town for a while. Like I mentioned, there was a reference of that in Street 2. Now, vampires is a very intriguing subject, I feel, because I mean we've had like a series called Pyar Ki Ye Kahani, I think, in on which used to come on Star One back in the day. It was like the
Yeah.
Kapoor show, which again it talked about vampires. I mean, of course, in the West, we've had like Twilight, Vampire Diaries. So, for you, what are the greatest challenges for you in terms of bringing this subject, that too linked to our scriptures and to the manuscripts,
Mm.
and presenting it in a commercial way, especially vampires.
See, I mean, with all this kind of characters, no, say vampires or werewolves or witches or child monsters. So all of them, pose a different challenge to you. Okay, and you need to like do a lot of research to draw parallels from our scriptures. You also need to dwell deep into folklores of different regions, south, north, west, east, and then you need to extract whatever you can find. Then you need to integrate that into the story, and then you need to do justice to that particular say sect of the supernatural character that we are creating. Okay, so I won't be able to reveal much about vampires, but I'll just give you the example of Bhediya, that how we conceived the werewolf into a new kind of a light. Okay, what we wanted to do, that typically in all werewolf movies, if you see wolf is I mean, when the man turns into a wolf, okay, he's eventually a villain. Okay, and he's killing people and things like that. So what we wanted to do is to make him a hero. Okay, and the human is the villain, and both of them are the same person. Okay, so when he is human, he is a corrupt person, he bribes people, and he's doing all sorts of shady things, and he himself turns into a wolf at night and kills people that he has bribed. Okay, so he himself is the hero, he himself is the villain, and in the end of the story, there's a dialogue that he has this realization that all this while I was thinking that he's the villain and I am the hero, but it's the other way around. He is doing the right thing and I am the villain. Okay, so I mean, this is how we wanted to redefine the genres. Then it was never answered in werewolf movies that once they convert, where do their clothes go? So we had the boxer on the wolf, and he's roaming around with the boxer. So all sorts of crazy things we did when we were writing. I mean, there are things like if the human drinks, say, a bottle of whiskey, okay, and converts into the wolf, then would the wolf be drunk?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, once you start exploring, there are a lot of crazy things that you come across. So yeah, we are also planning to do the same with the vampire, and let's see how it goes.
And it's really, again, really clever how, for example, because you've had Abhishek Banerjee who's come in Stree, and he's played a very good character in that. And then obviously in Bhediya, and I think the way they're almost like the same person essentially. And I think the way you've managed to play on that is absolutely amazing. I know you can't talk about Vampires of Vijay Nagar a lot, but what's the status of the film? Are you currently writing for it? What is it? Can you
So actually, it is written by two writers, Suresh Matthew, and there is another writer. And I'm like sort of doctoring the script, and it will go on floors, I think, in 2 3 months. It should go on floors in October or November.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Apar and Ayushmann come face to face in one of the films. I think that would be really hilarious to see. So I hope that
Fingers
happens.
crossed. Yes.
Fingers crossed. No, but I think it's wonderful, and I think honestly, so I could literally speak to you for hours on end. It's so fascinating. I think the insights that you have, I think the sort of research that you've done, I think it's truly incredible, and you really are one of the gifted writers we have in the industry today. And I'm really thankful that you could take up some time out for us and sort of decode C2 as well for us. Thank you so much, and
Thank you. Thank you.
all the very best for your upcoming projects. And of course, a huge congratulations on Street 2. It's a big win. And look forward to catching up with you very soon for the next amazing horror comedy or whichever franchise comes up next. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.